This podcast is sponsored by St. Francis Regional Medical Center in Shakopee. St. Francis is committed to caring for our community. As navigating the COVID-19 pandemic becomes our new normal, St. Francis remains open for emergency, urgent, and elective care. Learn more about the hospital's enhanced safety measures at stfrancis-shakopee.com/safecare. Good morning and welcome to the Shakopee Chamber Podcast. My name is Angie Whitcomb and I am the President and CEO of the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to today's show. I want to thank our sponsors at St. Francis Regional Medical Center for jumping on board and embracing this idea we had to start this podcast as a way of engaging with our membership and the community in a time where gathering in person is not encouraged. So thanks to our friends at St. Francis. If you would like to be a sponsor of this podcast, we've got opportunities for you. So do reach out to us here at the Chamber. You can find this podcast on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page. You can also catch us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, or if you're lazy like me, just say, "Hey, Alexa, play the Shakopee Chamber Podcast," and she will bring you the most recent episode. We are excited today to welcome our guests. It's a first for us here on the little show to have two additional video screens here. So we are really excited to welcome today our guest, Katie Schauman, the Community Engagement Director for Southern Valley Alliance, and its Executive Director, Christie Larson. Ladies, thank you so much for making time this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We're excited to be here.
We're glad to have you. So, Christie, I have a series of questions I want to hurl at you, and then Katie, I've got a series for you as well. So, I was doing some research. You guys have been chamber members and very involved in the community for a long time. But I was doing a little bit of research because I realized I didn't know the backstory. And your organization was founded in the 80s by a woman who found her way out of a horrible long-term violent situation. Tell us more about how SVA came to be.
Yeah. So Southern Valley Alliance, which was originally Southern Valley Alliance for Battered Women, was founded in the early 80s by Maxine Kruschke, who was a resident of Belle Plaine and did find her way out of this violent, abusive relationship, and realized as she got out, there just wasn't a resource in the area for victims of domestic abuse like herself. And so she came together with some community volunteers and founded the Alliance. And in 1984, we became a 501c3 nonprofit. We are still located in Belle Plaine. We serve all of Scott and Carver counties with domestic violence services. So grown since the early 80s, doing a lot more in the community for different populations, but still here serving victims of domestic violence.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned you've grown, and as any business grows, it's because of demand. And I was looking at the numbers last night, and my heart was sick with the data. I mean, one data point that I wrote down was that at year end of March 2019, so a year ago, pre-COVID, 1.32 million domestic abuse related incidents and crimes reported to the police. And all I kept thinking is that number is staggering. 1.32 million people in a violent situation, but those are only the ones that are reported. I mean, is it safe to assume we could double that number, or what are the data points around that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say doubling it would be minimal. I mean, there's probably a lot more than that. It's definitely kind of one of those silent crimes that happens, it's very covered up. A lot of, it's just people don't talk about it very much in our society, right? Victims are typically very isolated by their abusers. So hesitant to come forward, maybe don't have those support systems in place. and it just is very underreported. So I would say last year we served at Southern Valley 1,300 victims of domestic abuse. But again, I would say that's extremely low for our counties, and there's probably a number of people that didn't seek out our services that could have used it.
Wow. So you mentioned people are very isolated in their situations usually.
Yeah.
Well, back in March, we were told to isolate, to be
Right.
locked in our houses. What have you guys seen with the pandemic and how it's impacted your clients or the number of people you're helping?
Yeah. Definitely a really scary time for everyone, but enhanced for victims of domestic violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So typically their abusers do try to isolate them. So then when you have stay-at-home orders and things like that, they're even further isolated. So they might not, some of their supports that they might have had in place, whether it be going to church or to the library or to their children's school, all of those now have been removed, and they are forced to house and stay at home with their abuser. So oddly, all of the data throughout the state showed a decline in the calls to domestic violence agencies during that time. But we suspect that it was actually higher. Just they were unable to reach out to agencies because they were stuck at home. And that ability to reach out to agencies.
Yeah, normally you would be excited about a
Right.
statistic like that dropping, but the scary reality is they just couldn't. I mean, it's heartbreaking. So tell us about, thank God there's an organization like yours in the county, and, tell us about the services and the programs that you offer, and tell us a little bit about how you do outreach to reach people or make them aware that you're here. And
Sure.
Yeah.
So, probably one of our core programs is our 24/7 crisis line. So that's always available. We encourage people to call it anytime and with any questions or concerns that they have. It doesn't have to be, I'm in an immediate crisis. It can just be, I'm looking for support. I need some information on resources, things like that. So that's one big kind of push we put out in the community is, here's this resource, please use it any time of day or night. So that's fully staffed by either our staff members here in the office or trained advocates. So we have that. We do some criminal justice intervention where we partner a lot with our police and sheriff in the different counties. So I think we have 13 different jurisdictions that we work with. And they are really great because every time they are going out to a domestic violence call, they're filling out a report and sending it to us so then we can follow up with the victim and let them know about our services, how we can help them, things like that. So it's a really great partnership between us and law enforcement and just a really good community resource. So we have that. We just do kind of general advocacy for clients. So anytime somebody needs that support or referrals to other agencies or resources, they can come in and meet with our advocates here at the office or do that over the phone. We'll also accompany clients to court. So let's say they need to go to court for an order for protection or HRO, something like that. We can go with and provide them that emotional support maybe that they need. That's obviously a really scary thing and can be really intimidating to clients. So we definitely will accompany them to provide them that support that they need. We do support groups as well. So right now we're doing those virtually as we kind of had to shift with the pandemic. But starting again in a few weeks, we're going to do them in person. So this fall we'll have one evening support group in Carver County, one in Scott County, and then we'll continue doing the virtual option. So that's a good way for people to kind of plug in, get some of that peer support. And then I think I'm going to pass it over to Katie and let her talk a little bit about kind of some of the outreach and education we do in our community.
Perfect. Thank you. Katie, welcome.
Thank you so much. So I am the brand new community engagement coordinator here at Southern Valley Alliance. So part of our outreach that we do is going into different schools, and whether it's high school or middle school, which has been a little bit challenging this year, especially with the pandemic, but have recently reached out to the schools and said that we are still here and we can offer education for teenagers and young adults, either online or I'm willing to come into the schools in person. It is so important to educate at a young age because romantic relationships often begin at the middle school, high school level.
Don't say that. I just dropped my daughter off at middle school.
I know, right?
La, la, la,
we don't want to think about that. Cover your ears. Yes, exactly. But it's oftentimes we do see that that's when first romantic relationships begin. And so it's so important to teach about healthy relationships and how to navigate that, because it's something that's not often talked about in communities or even within families. Mm-hmm. So reaching out that way. Also, we work, like Christie said, closely with the police departments. So we will go in and help educate on the resources that we offer, and then also how to work with victims of domestic violence, working closely with hospitals in our areas as well. And then being out in the community, attending festivals, which have been lower than normal this year. So we've been at farmers markets, and we have a few farmers markets coming up. So come and say hello to me. Actually tomorrow, September, oh man.
Tomorrow is the 10th.
10th, yes.
But this won't air
but this
until
won't
the 17th.
Air then.
Yes.
Yeah. So all of our farmers markets will be done by then.
Oh. Where else can they find you?
Throughout the month of October, we will actually be doing a wonderful fundraiser and awareness event with Oldenburg Brewing Company here in Belle Plaine. We will have information throughout their brewing building, and you can go and order a glass of American Way, which is a type of beer that they have there. And for every American Way sold throughout the entire month of October, they will be giving $1 back to Southern Valley Alliance.
That's fantastic.
Which is an amazing partnership. We are so fortunate to have them here in our community.
That's great. So that's a lot of services and a lot of outreach you guys are doing, and that is fantastic. But embarrassingly, until I took this job, I didn't know you existed, right? Mm-hmm. So, are there other organizations like Southern Valley Alliance in the area? Or does every county have a support system like this? And is it enough?
Yeah. So we're really fortunate to be a part of a network throughout the state that is part of Violence Free Minnesota, which there are 93 organizations throughout the state, like Southern Valley. We all have different geographical jurisdictions that we serve. So Southern Valley is the only one for Scott and Carver counties. But it is so great to be a part of this membership organization of similar agencies, so we can share best practices, resources, just get advice on different programs and ways of doing things in the organization. So yeah, there are obviously a lot throughout the state. The majority of the state is covered. I'd say probably 95% geographically is covered by an agency. So you can find information on different organizations on Violence Free Minnesota's website if you're not in Scott or Carver counties. But there's always a need for more services, right? As we talked about before, we're not serving everybody, and so Katie's position is really important to get us out in the community, let people know that we're here, whether it be victims, but also, potential volunteers or people that want to get involved in the organization. We obviously, we're a small nonprofit and love our volunteers and couldn't do what we do without that support too.
Yeah. So I want to back up a little bit. You had mentioned in your intro that Southern Valley Alliance started out as Southern Valley Alliance for Battered Women. And you've recently made a name change because, as we talked about, business grows and evolves because of demand. And I think there's probably that stereotype that if you say domestic violence, you assume it's male to female. And that is not the case. So you've changed your name to be all inclusive. Talk to me about that dynamic and how you are reaching the male population, the male victims of this crime.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, just the awareness piece is so important. And I know it's one small step from us changing our name, but just bringing the awareness that it isn't just a male to female issue, that, about 10% of those we serve are men. And so a lot of people are really surprised by that, thinking, oh, men can't access services there, but we definitely serve men. Also, victims in same-sex relationships. So we changed our name in June to embrace that, to let people know that we are serving everybody, regardless of their gender, regardless of their race or ethnicity. I think typically we have had a history of serving white women, and so we want to get away from that too. We serve people of all different cultures, and if there is a need for language, we have language line usage where we can have an interpreter service. So we're really trying to just change our services to include everyone, to let people know that we are here, we can help no matter what.
Yeah, I have to imagine there is so much that a victim or a person in need who is thinking about calling you, the emotions and the fear and I would imagine embarrassment and, like what's going to happen, like all of that. And I'm assuming your staff is all professionally trained to weed that out. Tell us a little bit about the background of the people, the advocates at SVA. So if somebody is listening who needs your services, tell them the great care they're going to get. Tell them who they're going to get on the other end of that phone. Because I'm guessing there's also a lot of trust issues that are there before they pick up that phone and call.
For sure, definitely. Well, first off, I just want to mention that our crisis line is all confidential. So, people don't need to be afraid to call in. Everything is kept confidential. You're welcome to call anonymously if that's more comfortable and you just want to get some ideas and some resources, things like that. So you don't need to call and give all of your information, right? It's just call and we can help you no matter what. But all of the staff here are professionally trained, have background in social services, counseling, things like that. So, we're here. All of our volunteers as well go through a pretty intensive training. So, we're not just throwing anyone in there to work with clients. They go through a really extensive training process before they can even answer the phone or anything like that.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Now, Katie, you had mentioned that October is, or maybe you didn't, but you've got a fundraiser coming up, and October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I know you guys have, in addition to this great fundraiser with beer, which I have to tell you as a chamber exec, I love that you're partnering with a local business and that you're promoting the local beer. We have plenty of that here in Shakopee. So, but what else are you guys doing as an organization to mark that month of awareness and increase your outreach?
Yeah, we will be, COVID allowing, having booths set up at both county courthouses. Okay. So anyone that is coming in or out for meetings or hearings, they will be able to see right when they walk in a booth of our information, raising awareness and letting them know that we are here for anybody, anytime in both counties, Scott and Carver. And we will also be having our big golf scramble on October 7th at Deer Run Golf Course in Victoria, which will be a day of fun and golfing and delicious food. And also there will be a silent auction that is open to people who will not be attending the golf scramble as well. So that will be just a great day of raising awareness, raising funds for Southern Valley Alliance, but also letting people know that we are still here, we are still open and serving anyone that needs our assistance. And then on top of that, I'm working with a lot of local chambers within both counties, speaking at Rotary clubs throughout the month. So just getting in anywhere that I can to say, hey, we are here for you.
I love that. Yeah, it's an organization like yours is it is so important that everyone knows who you are, everyone knows what you do, and everybody acts as an ambassador for you.
Mhm.
So you mentioned fundraising and being a chamber, that's near and dear to my heart. That's everything we do, is to keep the coffers full so we can keep doing more for our members and the people we serve. So talk to me about how SVA is funded. Is it 100% fundraising and sponsorship like that? Or do you get, how are you funded? Let's just break it down.
Sure. So just a little over half of our budget is all donations. So, a lot of individual community donations, which we're so appreciative, different service groups, faith communities, things like that. So that's obviously the majority of where we get our funds, which we're so thankful for all of our donors.
Mm-hmm.
The other kind of portion, we have a big chunk from OJP, which is the Office for Justice program. So they typically fund a lot of domestic violence programs throughout the state, and we are a recipient of some of those funds, so federal dollars, to provide these outreach services, and then some smaller foundation grants as well.
Great. It's a lot to keep up with as you're planning your budget and you're planning programs and you're making sure you have the right people there to serve the people who need you. You're always chasing that. So I hope people listening realize that as they're making their donation choices this year, that they add you to the list, because the work you do is so incredibly important. And I dare say not well enough known. And that's part, I'm grateful that you wanted to be on the podcast today so we can help spread that. You're members of our chamber. And I know your gala had to go virtual this year, and I got into a couple bidding wars on some things. I won a Keurig. I was so excited about that. So, hopefully that those events are accomplishing the goal for you. If people listening, about the fundraising, as I was on your website, one of the things I noticed was that there are some pretty specific levels of giving that allow you to do some pretty specific outreach and help for victims once they get to you. Do you want to break those down for our listeners in case somebody's thinking, I should donate, and then maybe we inspire them to give an amount that's really going to make a difference?
Sure. So, one of the things that we do here at Southern Valley is we call it our emergency assistance program. So when we're working with a client, if they're maybe in like an active domestic violence situation and need to flee or remove themselves immediately, maybe they don't have another place to go, right? They don't have friends or family in the area. So we can help them with a temporary hotel stay. So get them into a safe place, get them out of the unsafe environment, and give them some time to figure out their next steps and formulate a plan. So we do quite a few of those. And, hotels aren't cheap right now, right? So typically we have about an average of $100 a night for a hotel stay. We provide generally 3 nights. So, if someone wants to donate $100, that's going to help this family that's fleeing domestic violence get to a safe situation, have some time to formulate a plan, and come up with next steps. So obviously any amount can assist the organization and provide resources, but just kind of putting it in perspective, $100 is maybe a safe night in a hotel. If you want to go more than that, we also, part of our emergency assistance program is helping, maybe it's with a down payment or a security deposit for someone that needs to move out of the home and needs to restart in a different apartment. So that can be upwards of $1,000 for that one family, but making a life-changing difference for them, right? Giving them that fresh start and that new opportunity to move forward. So any amount appreciated, and we're just thankful for all of that. Yep.
So you mentioned that you help people restart, like get into an apartment and restart. Do you also accept donations of furniture or houseware? Do you accept those kind of donations at the Alliance?
We don't.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we just don't have the capacity here. So we work a lot with different agencies and form partnerships to get those sort of resources. So whether it be the CAP agency or Love Inc., they have access to things like furniture or household goods or things that somebody might need to, restart and furnish a new apartment. So through forming those partnerships, we're able to provide those resources. So yeah.
Perfect. So as we wrap this up, ladies, you mentioned that volunteers, you can't do your job without it. If people listening are so moved, how do they get involved and where do you need the most help? What should they do? What are the next steps?
Yeah, well, we have many different ways that we need volunteers right away. We are always looking for more crisis line advocates. Those would be the people who are answering our phones here on the 24/7 crisis line. We are always looking for support group facilitators. Now that we are able to start having more in-person groups for support group, we are looking for facilitators in both Scott and Carver County, or if you're willing to do it online as well. We always need volunteers for tabling events. And we also have some fundraisers coming up later in the year. Our Gifts of Hope fundraiser that we do every year, raising awareness and asking for gifts for the families who we have supported throughout the year. So we need volunteers and people who are willing to have like drop-off locations for toys and gifts for the holidays as well. And you can find information on our website regarding that, or you can also call us if you're interested in volunteering, or emailing info@svamn.org. If you're interested in volunteering, we would love to give you more information.
Great. And all of that, again, to repeat that, their website is svamn.org. You can count the Shakopee Chamber in as a drop-off for toys and gifts for the holidays. Just put us on your list. And you'll probably need to call me as we get closer to that, but we are in. You've heard it here, and now it's recorded for all of time. Ladies, I really appreciate your time and your information. And I'm going to throw one at you that we didn't talk about ahead of time, but this crime has no preference. It's got no prejudice. It's everywhere, every race, every sexual orientation, every gender, everything. So the reality is somebody listening to this podcast when it airs needs your services. So what are the takeaways? What do you want to leave with somebody who's listening right now who maybe thinks, this might be the day?
Yep.
What do you want to
just call us. Again, it's confidential. You can do it anonymously. Maybe you just need someone to listen to you. You need that support. We're here for you for that. And so we open your call. And if not us, talk to somebody else. Talk to a friend, a family member, a pastor, someone that you feel that you can trust and you feel safe with, and get that support, and just keep moving forward and know that we are here along the way.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, just know that you are not alone and that it is not your fault. We are here, so we're ready.
Wow. Bless you, ladies. The work you do, it's emotional, it's heavy, it's hard, and we are grateful that there are people like you who do this. So thank you, and thank you for being supporters of the Shakopee Chamber, and we in turn will continue to support your organization. And thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you.
And those of you listening, it's svamn.org. And we also want to thank our sponsors of today's podcast, St. Francis Regional Medical Center, who continues to care for all of us, even during this pandemic. They are offering safe healthcare for our well-being. So everyone be well, and we'll see you next week. This podcast is sponsored by St. Francis Regional Medical Center in Shakopee. Your safety is the top priority at St. Francis, and enhanced safety measures are in place while you're provided with quality care close to home. Learn more about the enhanced safety measures at stfrancis-shakopee.com/safecare.